Oh man, Instagram, this. Ooh, look at my pictures. Oh my god, 12 loves. That is great. Only 10. Come on, man, you gotta do better than that. 10. Oh, look at my babies. Oh crap. Gotta do my speech.
Good evening. When we say addiction, what comes to mind? What can cause it? Can alcohol cause addiction? Of course. Well, what about drugs? Prescribed or not? Can that cause an addiction? What about Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter? Can that cause an addiction? At the end of the speech, you will learn what social media is, addiction, and a brief description of social media addiction. I believe that if we are informed about social media and addiction, we can eventually bridge the gap between the two and its relationships. We all have some types of media presence out there. Some of us have Facebook to post our daily lives so we can get likes, our photos, what's going on that day. Some of us have Twitter to get an update with the latest tweets or whatever it is that we're subscribed to, cryptocurrency, psychology, everything. Well, what about if you want to go to a restaurant and want to know about the review before you go? If it's good, use Yelp. At the same time, TripAdvisors if you want to go to a place and make sure that you get your money's worth. There are many forms and uses of social media. A lot of it is advertisements. A lot of it is social media presence to advertise your product. A lot of it used to influence people as influencers. And also as content makers, such as YouTube, what I'm using now. But when does it go bad? When do you get addicted to it? First, what is social media? According to Matthew Hudson of the definition, social media refers to websites and applications designed to allow people to share content quickly. So this would be sharing your photos and post again on Facebook. As an influencer, you could get a lot of followers also. You can make a lot of money on YouTube if you have enough content and you have a lot of subscribers. As I mentioned earlier, Yelp for reviews, TripAdvisors. And you just thought that social media was FB, Instagram. So when did this phenomenon begin? According to Washington Post, a Morse code was sent from Baltimore to Washington, D.C. in 1844 with the message Wrath hath and God wrath, which can be appeared now and compared to as LOL and OMG. That's pretty funny. But let's go ahead and move a little bit to the future. According to the history of social networking, the first social sites launched in the 80s and 90s were introduced by CompuStar, America Online, and Prodigy. Remember Friendster? I think I was a little too young for that. What about LinkedIn? LinkedIn was founded in 2002 for business professionals. What about MySpace? I had MySpace. You remember MySpace? You could put all your different music from 1 to 10. You could change your whole background to whatever you like, to like different formats, and then all of a sudden, boom, crash. That was crazy. But in 2008, Facebook finally got ahead of MySpace, and it was a wrap. And by the way, did you know when Facebook started? 2004, by Mark Zuckerberg, who is now a billionaire. Today, social media is everywhere. Just take a look at this chart. Social media video content alone is a $135 billion industry. And if you looked at the next chart, social media has grown to 1.5 billion users a year. Facebook, Twitter, IG, Snapchat, Pinterest, and TikTok are one of the more popular ones. Well, what about Reddit? According to Hudson, Reddit falls under a review network category that sparks discussions amongst its users. And they have a lot of users. Well, what about Yelp? Well, it falls under review networks such as TripAdvisors. And YouTube, media network, as I'm using now to share my content. Now, let's move to our next topic, which is a brief description of addiction and social media addiction. But first, what is an addiction? According to an article reviewed by Timothy J. Lee, PhD, Addiction is a dysfunction of the brain system that involves reward, motivation, memory, and how your body craves these rewards. Some types of addiction you might think of is nicotine, coffee, and the more dangerous ones such as alcohol and drugs such as opioids, cocaine. Simply put, an addiction gives you that pleasurable high that you look for over and over again. Well, what about social media addiction? Is that a thing? According to an article under social media addiction, social media falls under behavioral addiction and estimates that 5 to 10% of Americans meet these criteria. I believe that there's more, and this data is a little bit incorrect and outdated. According to an article by Jenna Hilliard, social media induces dopamine in your brain, just like gambling. What is dopamine, do you say? Well, according to Hope Crystal of WebMD, dopamine is a chemical neurotransmitter in your brain that provides pleasure and allows you to think, focus, and be interested in things. Pleasure. This is what's happening in your brain when you're scrolling, getting you followers, getting you likes. It feels good, doesn't it? And just like nicotine, this can also be addicting. Today, we talked about what social media is, how it began, and the alarming rate of its growth. We also talked about different types of social media out there. And then we also talked briefly about addiction and social media addiction. But when does social media become an addiction? And when should you be concerned and stop? Well, we'll tackle these questions on my next briefing. In the meantime, please like my video on YouTube. It'll make me feel good. Thank you.